Dear the people that copyright claimed my previous video on Jurassic World Fallen Kingdom, I know probably by the time this gets out, maybe it'll be released. Since I believe they're from the same company, or the people that own this movie, Amblin, Universal, probably only those two, but who knows. In case you want to copyright claim this, just as long as the previous video was copyrighted, this is fair use. I'm using clips from your movie that is also very old. And stuff that you've shown. I've bought the movie, I paid them money, and people have uploaded whole scenes. So for both these cases, it wouldn't really make that much sense. This is fair use. I'm not even using super duper long clips. I'm adding stuff. So yeah, just in case they think about, maybe copyright claiming me or anything like that, like the previous video, because I'd, like to gain some monetization actually, or at least have people see it. So either way, Jurassic Park is a classic. It just is. It has great characters, effects, and something interesting to say, which some of the sequels do, but not to the extent this movie does. It has flaws, like some stuff that doesn't make sense, but that kind of comes with every movie. I think the only few movies I've seen that really are either really close to perfect or are perfect are Jaws and maybe The Birds. I guess it's kind of old, but it still holds up really well. The characters are really interesting, and I guess Spider-Man Into Spider-Verse is probably the most flawless film I've seen. Seriously, I don't know. I'll have to rewatch it, but that movie was very entertaining. So yeah, I'm just gonna be reviewing this film. Hopefully, I'll review Lost World and maybe Jurassic World again. Who knows? And hopefully, I won't get copyrighted for those as well. But either way, the film begins with some ominous music courtesy of John freaking Williams. His music is always great, even if the movie sucks or even isn't that good. It doesn't matter, he still tries his best and still ends up being really good. Even if it's not his best, it's still really great. I don't even know what his best is, because I haven't seen some of his movies, or movies that he's, composed music for. These are probably the only films I've seen him compose music for, besides some Star Wars movies and stuff like that. Then out of the trees comes a raptor, or is it plural? I don't really know. In a cage, and Robert Muldoon and some other workers drop the cage slowly and load it until one raptor gets annoyed and pushes the cage back so that I can grab a worker who Muldoon desperately tries to save but eventually dies. Cut to Don Gennaro, who talks to a digger who knows Hammond and says how the worker's death is raising safety questions and now he needs to do an inspection, but Hammond hates inspections, and if two people sign off on the park, it's fine. They get Ian Malcolm, so they just need Grant, although the digger says they won't get him out of Montana. This is a great scene that perfectly characterizes these great characters. Doesn't really start to characterize Grant that much, but still kind of like Hammond gives a little bit peek into his character. Who's definitely quite a different character from the book. A lot of different stuff from the book. The movie is quite different from the book. I haven't even fully read it, but the opening is quite different. So, yeah. Also, the digger holds up a mosquito and some amber in a really great ominous shot. What a great scene, honestly. What a great opening, 5 to 10 minutes or so. I'm not sure if this counts as the opening. I don't really care. It's still great. Cut to Alan Grant and Ellie, who are digging up bones, and with some other people checking on a computer, which Alan hates. They see the outline of a raptor, and Alan says that they have more in common with birds. But this kid says how the raptor isn't even scary, even though he shouldn't have seen anything from the angle he's in. So, yeah, it doesn't make sense. Also, the whole thing with Alan hating technology is kind of like his refusal to accept new things, I think. Either way, scares the kid with a big raptor claw and explains how the raptor would probably kill you by, going to your sides and how you're going to be alive when they start to eat you, so try to show a little respect. So, he hates kids because they smell, are expensive, noisy, and etc. Understandable, but then a helicopter comes in and messes up the dig site, and the two find Hammond somehow in the trailer, even though there's actually no way he could get there that fast, so, yeah. He basically persuades them to sign off on his park that is, quote, right up their alley, and for the promise of funding for their dig site for 3 years. They obviously say yes, because the movie has to happen, and because, again, it's, quote, right up their alley, and they can probably understand what it may be part of, and what it is, probably. And we cut to Dashin, who is an important character in the novels, and I think dies in the second one, but a minor character here, and is hopefully going to be in Jurassic World Dominion, though by the time this video comes out, it should only be a month or two away, and would probably get it confirmed. And maybe in a Lego, because they tend to reveal some stuff. Like with Jurassic World and Fallen Kingdom, they reveal the hybrids, although the trailers also did that. But if I talk about Jurassic World, I'll probably mention it as well. And we also meet Nedry, who talks about getting all 15 species of dinosaurs back to him by 7 o'clock tomorrow. It's funny, that's 4 species off from in Jurassic World Fallen Kingdom. That's kind of funny, I think, because they said 11 species in that movie. They seem to get maybe slightly more, but I don't know. But yeah, they're going to use a Barbasol can that can hold them all, but only for 48 hours or something like that. So, he has to get it by tomorrow night. So, just be safe, 48 hours. And Nedry says, don't get cheap on me, and then adds, that was Hammond's mistake. Implying something was between them, and some interesting, clever characterization that doesn't go way too far, but definitely leads to some interesting character conflicts. Mainly it's just a scene of them talking. It's just really great. We cut to a helicopter with Ian and Donald and Hammond and Ellen and Ellie, and the helicopter lands on the island, and they get into jeeps, and they stop just in time for Brachiosaurus and one of this movie's best scenes, and the first scene where you really see a dinosaur in full view. And yeah, some of the effects don't hold up, but it still looks very good and super duper majestic, and the writing still lands, because they had to, like, they weren't sure if the effects were going to be good, so they had to be like, alright, well, let's still make this writing super duper good. And Hammond even has a T-Rex. They'll all get back on the jeeps and towards the main center where they're given a tour and these seats, starting with the Hammond on the screen and real Hammond who has parts. So would that mean he'd be doing this every single day if the park was successful? I think if so, that sounds hella lame. After that, they see some eggs, and the protagonists leave to see them. They see an egg starting to hatch, and Dr. Wu, who totally won't become a lame villain later in the series, watches them as the egg hatches, and it's a raptor. The characters exchange some great dialogue, Ian giving his life finds way speech, which really only works in this film and feels cheap in the others. We see Alan holding the cute baby velociraptor, then transition to the three violent adults, as the characters talk about the raptors, one of them being a game warden there named Robert Muldoon, who talks about how smart the raptors are, which is a nice bit of foreshadowing concerning his death with the whole clever girl. And apparently the big one is really smart and also shortened the population of raptors from 8 to 3, although I guess technically 9 including the big one. So there's at least been an excuse for these things to be violent. Only the violent ones survived because they were the ones, this one that happened to be really violent and psychotic, shortened the population, so the other violent ones that would probably dare to challenge it and be, physically threatening would survive, so it doesn't make sense. Either way, this shows how dangerous she is. We then get an off-screen kill with the cow, but I'm okay with this, unlike, let's say, the few deaths from King Cretaceous or, like, Fallen King. In that one, we only see the Indominus Rex open her mouth and go near them, and then we hear a scream. This one is accompanied by lots of thrashing around and violent roars, and we kind of see a bit of the aftermath with some blood. It also shows that they pretty much eat their entire prey, which is a scary thought. I'm not saying every death needs blood, actually, yes. Even if it's just a little bit like this, it's just blood. Literally everyone's seen blood before in real life, so I don't know why people get so worked up over it. It's more realistic. Seriously, I bet some of you who complain about this shit about worse cuts the amount of damage you see done than that people in this show and a lot of movies. It's just weird. Either way, we transition to a scene, the lynch scene to be more specific, which just has more great writing. Donald, while being a greedy man, at least isn't just like, yeah, whatever, when told the park can't cater to the rich. He said that he can have a coupon day. Now, I know he may be joking, most likely is, but the point is he's not just some boring rich guy, he's more funny, which helps because he's in the movie for like half of it. Oh, and Hammond is infinitely better because of the performance, well, obviously as well as the writing, but still. I believe in the book he was just an asshole, which can be realistic, but it's not like super duper compelling. And as for the fact that the book is a little bit more different, like way more different in terms of violence and swearing and ideas, it sounds marketable, it's more adult themed and does not stray away from things. My main point being, I guess it fits with the book because it's more realistic, and the book isn't exactly going for a more lighthearted, better approach. I don't know if I'm saying it right, not like better approach, but still, the point is I prefer this version of the character over the one in the book, but I still think that character fits better for the book. This guy actually cares about people and their opinions, unlike some fans of this franchise and just people in general. He isn't an asshole, he's just a bit delusional and wanted a dream that wasn't really possible. The scene includes more good dialogue, like how Hammond didn't acquire any of the knowledge, or really his scientists. They took the next step, but that wasn't as hard. I always wonder why they never got the actual writer, David Coeb, for the later films, but I guess he did end up writing You Should Have Left, so maybe it was a better choice in the end. Who knows? That's like a psychological horror movie. This isn't. It's a horror movie, but it's still different. Oh, and Malcolm's rape of the natural world line is quite good and makes sense. You're bringing these fake reconstructions that aren't even accurate into, like, this present day world that's literally gonna rape it. These things will ruin this world, or maybe it's the other way around, like the destruction of dinosaurs in their world, making a more fake version. The fact that I can go on and on about this scene positively, but not much for the other ones, maybe at times even the second one or third one, says quite a lot. Now, these sequels do not compare as much. Even the second one is just alright. The 5 of them leave, and we get introduced to more characters, Lex and Tim. The 7, actually 6, because Hammond leaves, goes into 2 cars with Tim wanting to go in whichever one Grant is, but since he hasn't had his arc yet, he just puts him in the other car. Hammond asks why he didn't build the park in Orlando once he hears there's a tropical storm coming, which reminds me of the Jurassic Park ride in Orlando, which I ran on. Right before it got turned into that really shitty looking version, it's just the original with more screens and one more animatronic. I guess blue is cool, but it's just not that different interesting. I wish I had True Paths at random maybe, or something. Oh, and we get introduced to Ray, played by motherfucking Samuel L. Jackson, which is weird for him to have a small role, considering he was in Goodfellas and Coming to America, but whatever. Maybe he wasn't as big, although, like, literally the year after he'd be in Pulp Fiction, I think, and, in other movies. But either way, he's still as enjoyable as ever as he starts to tour, plus he's in the movie for still quite a bit. I mean, he doesn't play a huge role, but still. The first stop on the tour is at the Dilophosaurus, but like every other movie, including the latest one, which I'm pretty sure promised to have it, unless I'm wrong, it doesn't show up. They then reach the T-Rex paddock, and this is a bit off topic, but for some reason I just get immersed into this. I think it's because the film makes you feel what like a realistic park would be, and also because the sounds are quite pleasant. I would totally love to go to a park like this, except, I mean, all the safety precautions. But that fucker also doesn't show up, causing Samuel L. Jackson to tempt a T-Rex with a goat. They keep going, and Alan sees a car randomly in this field of grass and leaves with Ellie leaving as well. Alan finds a Triceratops, and the others join him. Also, I don't know if this is normal for a Triceratops, but horns look so cracked that it just like fell apart, and someone just put the horns back together with not even like Gorilla Glue, just like school glue. Not a flaw, just an observation, maybe leading to the whole careless park and leading to the whole downfall of it. So I guess that kind of makes sense. Alan leans on it while breathing, which is very smart because it seems to be very sick, but understandable as he earlier remarked on how Triceratops were his favorite, so it's a little dumb, but it makes sense. It's dumb, but characteristic-wise, it makes sense and isn't even a huge thing. Ellie finds some plants or whatever it is, but that are toxic, but Jerry Harding, who is a character in the Telltale game as well, doesn't seem to mind as he remarks on how the dinos don't eat it, which is somewhat idiotic and careless, and shows how this park is probably going to fail in the long run anyway because of tiny mistakes like this, but it feels believable, unlike, let's say, Jurassic World, where they use non-lethals to take down a monster they already know nothing about because Claire wasn't told. Two huge mistakes a proper park would not want to make, yet in that film, Jurassic World has been already open since 2005, meaning for a whole decade or so, yet shit like this happens. That does not feel as realistic, and maybe you could try to show how they get away with problems like that, but as far as I remember, they really don't. I find it less believable that someone act like Claire than these people, who are careless at times but also seem to be facing crazy odds like storms and stuff. Most of the time, it is their fault, but they do try and usually seem curious and actually try to stop it with countermeasures, which they kind of do in Jurassic World, but less realistic, like non-lethals. Seriously? Not even one lethal weapon hurt it a bit? That's not even careless, that's just moronic. And then dangerous. I don't want this video to be taking jabs at the other films, but my point is that they're both dumb at varying degrees. This one's more realistic because it feels like someone would do it, and it feels like something someone would do, I guess, as well. But it's just not for such a big thing, like not knowing what the fuck you're going to release to the public is this cool new attraction. Heck, 5 seconds later, when Muldoon and Ray learn about the storm is not changing course, they talk about literally cutting the torch short to prevent anything bad happening, unlike Jurassic World, where Mizrahi just wants to deal with the threat quietly and not inform the public in case Indominus gets fucking loose. Yeah, I get Mizrahi is supposed to be dumb and careless like Claire and the others, and it's a statement or whatever the fuck, but Owen is equally as dumb by going in a dino cage unarmed without knowing if it's in there. So if your main character is acting on the same level of stupidity and doesn't get called out, I'm going to assume you, the writer, think it's rational, and that's not a problem. Look, I don't want to go on a tangent, but my point still stands. Hell, in this film, Ray tells the other workers who will not be necessary to leave on the boat that leaves in about 5 minutes. Kind of like with the whole COVID thing, like non-essential workers, you can work from home or something like that. Yet the park still fails and bad shit happens, so an entertaining, well-made adventure film can happen with occasional flaws. So yes, our characters can be rather smart and still fail. It's called coming up with a smart reason for the plot to happen. And if in your film it can't happen logically, then your foundation is severely flawed and some things need to change or move around, whichever one fits. We see Ian Malcolm come across one of the later sequels, Dino Shit, and you might be led to believe it'll cut to another shot, but no, it continues moving back to show Jerry Harding along with Ellie, the latter going through dino poop to find if any of these toxic plant things are in it. She doesn't find anything, and instead of sexually spreading it across her thighs in a weird comedy bit, she just walks away and doesn't act like it's a sex comedy or just a really shitty comedy, or hell, like an advertisement or in gross situations, still needs to be hot, or the person looks like they have makeup. Now, if you haven't seen the Jurassic World deleted scenes, you won't know what the hell I'm talking about. Yes, I know I'm referencing a lot. It's not my fault that's a carbon copy of this film, but bad, with some good parts. Basically, in that scene, Claire sexually spreads shit across her thigh in a really weird way. Basically, the scene does not feel realistic, like they're taking the threat of a dino killer seriously, like they're not actually. Like, the fuck? In this, there's no killer dinos yet, but my point is, the scene does what it needs to do and has a purpose. Show that there aren't any poison things in the dino shit, and even if it doesn't have purpose, that camera trick was neat, and it's short and well acted. Also in Jurassic World, they literally kiss despite being covered in shit. Like, yeah, let's kiss even though we're covered in dino poop. It's so hot. What the fuck? I wish I were just covered in dirt or something. That's so gross. It's weird. Now she tries to ruin the island by taking power offline, etc., but says so some things will go on and off to the others, so Hammond is not that worried. Although, I'd still be a bit worried, so again, a bit careless, but not as dumb and idiotic, but still, to an extent. Also, the main 5 are in cars now, by the way, excluding Ellie Sattler. Andrew goes into a room and steals some dino embryos and leaves as Ian and Grant talk about the cars. Not about the cars, what the fuck? Talk before the cars stop. Well, they might be talking about cars, I don't know. There's a lot of dialogue in this movie, not like that's a bad thing. But either way, we also see how Hammond and Ray think about Nedry, with Hammond saying to check the vending machine once they realize he's gone, and Ray Arnold, I think, saying he's a complete slob in a really funny way, while pushing all this stuff, which is just a bunch of papers and Voon stuff, which may add a layer to his character. Earlier, he said how Ammon made a mistake getting cheap on him. Now, you can interpret this two ways. Either he feels his genius isn't rewarded enough with more money or something similar, but that he's just really greedy and wastes it on lots of junk food and other gluttonous delights, hence Hammond saying to check the vending machine. Although it could just be him talking trash behind his back, which reminds me earlier when he talked to Nedry about how he does not blame people for his mistakes, but he does ask that they pay for him and how he won't get drawn into one of their debates. It just reminds me because of how low he thinks of him, which is understandable. Nedry gets in a jeep, and through being blinded by the light, rain and fog in his glasses, he crashes into a sign telling him where the east dog is and tries to spin the arrow around in the direction he thought it was. Also, one thing I noticed on Nedry's desk, a picture of J. Robert Oppenheimer with two post-its, one saying beginning of the baby boom and another one presumably showing the atomic bomb's power with a boom under where the mushroom cloud starts. Interesting detail, don't really understand though, still interesting and funny nonetheless, and still makes the world feel more real, like, oh, there's those little things like that you can catch on second or third or even fifth watches or something like that. We then see the true reason for Ray Arnold's death, because he didn't say the magic word. Truly sad. Also, this motherfucker Nedry had all the time to do that you didn't see the magic word animation, which is like so weird to me. Like, when did he make that? Imagine if they saw it before this happened. How would he explain it? Be like, oh, yeah, I'm like into like cut paste art. Also kind of shows how I waste time. Not a flaw, just actually something really interesting. We then see Tim uses some night vision goggles to see the goat in the paddock still. But after looking away at some cups vibrating because of a stomping noise, which I think was achieved by like plucking guitar strings, so that's cool. He looks back to see the chain moving around, meaning if something happened to this goat, it happened very recently as it's still moving. Then one of the goat legs drops on top of the car after Legs asks where it is, in an amazing jump scare that isn't fake. No, this isn't a subtle jab at the sequels as far as I remember. Actually, no, it is kind of a bit of a jab at Fallen Kingdom, but also just a bunch of other films. I just hate most big jump scares that have obnoxious sound effects. We then got possibly one of the best shots in this film. Well, I mean, this whole scene is full of it and amazing, but let me just explain. We start off seeing the T-Rex's hand and power shine through a blurry window of the Jeep because of rain and stuff, then raise up to see the glass on the roof, and the blood of the leg, which is now gone, I guess, but it's likely it fell since it hit the glass so hard it might bounce off or whatever. We then see the T-Rex's head, but it's still blurry until it raises above the car and eats the goat, which has both of its legs, so maybe it was the front legs, I don't know, not a flaws, I can see the front legs, so it's possible it's one of them, but basically the shot is awesome with amazing animatronics, which we only see after an hour and 3 minutes, just amazing with great pacing. Donald Gennaro, understandably but still selfishly, freaks out and leaves Lex and Tim to go to the bathroom station near the T-Rex paddock. Nice design there. This is a dumb decision but still reasonable as he's still scared and doesn't know what the thing is, and doesn't know that it can get out, so it's dumb and moronic, but not that dumb and moronic, and is reasonably so. The wires surrounding the cage that would once shock the T-Rex are not being realized by the T-Rex is not working, and are ripped apart, which I actually think you can still see the goat leg, but briefly, I don't know, maybe it's just more blood and I'm weird. The Rex gets out in some cool shots, and while Lex tries to get like the attention of the others to signal for help, it just attracts the T-Rex and it flips it over after doing a cool pupil dilating shot. Alan gets the T-Rex's attention, but so does Ian Malcolm as he throws a flare away too late, going into the bathroom like a cunt, and gets Donald Gennaro killed, but you can actually see it being curious and be like, what is that, before it like starts to kill him, so that's real interesting. Alan gets Lex out of the car, but not Tim, before Lex screams, bringing the T-Rex back, and they get pushed along with the car over, oh wait, what, a cliff? What cliff was there? There was literally vegetation there, but now it's lower. It doesn't make any sense. That realistically should not be there, so that's weird and doesn't make sense. Okay, either way, we cut to Ray Arnold, John Hammond, Elise Allen, and Robert Muldoon. The latter two decide to take it cheap to find John's grandchildren. Well, I mean, I guess John asks Muldoon, who agrees, and Ellie comes as well. We cut to Nedry, who drives into a ditch where he finds a road that'll take him to the ship, and decides to try and find a way to get the Jeep running. Personally, I would just walk/run to the place if it's nearby, but that option's good as well. Dennis somewhat comically falls into the stream, losing the Barbasol can with all the embryos, which a Tesla game would actually pick up with, so that's cool. Dennis eventually finds a Dilophosaurus and tries to make it play fetch. I also may have a problem with the scene. I don't. He clearly shows his incompetence in facing dangers, and even calls it stupid, showing how he literally does not respect the dinosaur at all. He clearly underestimates the dinosaur before it kills him by spitting poison and eating in the car, in a really disturbing part. For a 1993 PG-13 film, it clearly got away with quite a bit. I'll forget how much of an ass Dennis is to the dinosaurs. He literally says he'll run it over when he gets his car down there, but he doesn't. I'm starting to think this dino just realized Dennis was going to commit vehicular dino slaughter and just killed him in self-defense. Cut back to Alan and the two kids where Grant finds Tim in the Jeep and gets him out, but he also vomited, I think. So to the people complaining how he doesn't have much of a reaction to the car falling down, that's not true. He vomited and felt sick, so yeah. Also, he pushed on the steering wheel by accident. The Jeep starts to move around the tree and falls down on the two as Tim remarks how they're back in the Jeep in a realistically comedic moment. It's not during the chaos, it's just after a smaller problem because this one's smaller than a T-Rex trying to kill you. Plus, it may have been for Tim to calm himself down and make light of the situation as they aren't in danger currently. When the Jeep starts to fall into them, Alan covers Tim to protect him, already showing signs of his arc. Ellie and Muldoon arrive to the paddock area and find Ian asleep, but quickly wakes up after he hears the roar of the T-Rex as the three get into the Jeep, as the T-Rex finds him and chases them in a really cool scene as it stops once it gets tired and realizes there's probably easier prey, which is realistic. We then get a great scene of Ellie and Hammond talking where we really learn about how this is just an illusion and how Hammond did not respect the sheer power of this place and the animals, but now since they're out, whereas Hammond still believes that this creation is an act of sheer will and also good intentions, which is the main thing driving in this man. He wants to create not an illusion, but something you can touch and feel. Ellen and the two kids comes across raptor eggs where he talks about how they may be able to spontaneously change sex in order to breed, alluding to Ian's life finds a way speech. We cut back to the vibe in the control room where Arnold talks about the lysine contingency and how dinos can't produce amino acid lysine unless supplied by them and will slip into a coma and die to prevent their spread if they get off the island. Ray then turns off the power, then turns it back on, but realizes they need to turn on the circuit breakers among other things. He leaves for the maintenance shed as Alan and the two kids come across some gallimimus blocking their way and run amongst them before hiding in a tree branch. Well, on one side as the T-Rex comes out and eats one of them with blood. Strange how the later movies start to lack that. I also like how the scene is realistically shot instead of a 5-minute sequence where the gallimimus try to attack them. It's also interesting how close the T-Rex must have been to them, and realistically it's possible that they would have been the ones to die instead of that gallimimus if they didn't attract the T-Rex's attention. I mean, the script might not have done that, but in the universe it's very possible. Ellie and Muldoon leave the emergency bunker. Hammond made those two and Ian get into it along with him, obviously, as they think something bad might have happened to Ray Arnold, which did, but I believe they weren't able to see the actual death of him because the hurricane destroyed it like the actual set. Either way, Ellie gets there, finds what's left of him, and a scary raptor chases her, and at the same time, Alan and the two kids get past an electrical fence before the power gets turned on, except for Tim, who Alan executes CPR on him to bring him back to life. Muldoon finds one of the raptors and prepares to shoot it, but does take a sweet time, which is a little dumb, but does lead to the other raptor finding him in a really cool scene. And he responds by calling her a clever girl, which the raptor responds to by killing him. Alan brings Tim and Lex to the main visitor center and leaves them there, but only for a bit to find the others. In hindsight, this is rather idiotic, but at the same time, how do you know the raptors were there? If anything, he saw some footprints of baby ones, meaning they gave birth, so to him it would make sense that they might be tired or something. Ellie and Alan find each other and hug, and Tim and Alex are eating some of the desserts they find, only to be interrupted by a raptor behind some paintings, I think. Either way, it's really cool. They hide in the kitchen, and Ellie talks about how the third raptor is contained, unless they figured out how to open doors, which, well, they kind of do, as in the next shot in the kitchen, the two velociraptors enter. As the two move around, as one of the raptors basically sees Tim, yet somehow doesn't go after him, which is kind of weird. I'd honestly just have it not look there. They avoid the raptor looking for them, but Lex tries to hide it. And gets caught by one, but it turns out to be a reflection of it, which makes sense because in the first shot you see it actually reflects and isn't something that looks crystal clear, so that's actually kind of smart. Tim also gets the attention of one raptor and runs into the freezer, but isn't fast enough to catch him, which would have been a flaw, a minor one, but still a flaw, if it didn't become suddenly so much faster inside the freezer with ice on the floor when Tim was closing the door. I guess to continue the suspense, but you think he'll be fine, but nope, the thing is still going there, but it gets stuck trying to get at Tim, but the raptor becomes just like way too fast, way faster than when chasing a kid who had CPR done in them like 5 minutes ago on the ground with no ice. It's not a deal breaker, but it's a little annoying. We then get the worst scene, but even then it's not that bad. Basically, the two kids meet up with Ellie and Alan downstairs and go to the control room, and Ellie and Alan try to push the door that the raptor is trying to get in, while Tim and Lex try to close and reboot power. Sounds like another iconic scene? Well, unfortunately not really. It's one of the few missteps. Ellie is barely helping by being on the side of the door that won't do much and almost grabs the gun with her foot, but makes too sporadic of a movement, causing the scene to be more intense and dragged out. It's the only scene that genuinely feels like the writers didn't know how to make the scene work and has suffered because of it. Jurassic Park, you already have a fuck ton of iconic scenes. You could have made this a quick scene and done a longer scene in the vents instead of a shorter version we get. Also, Tim just kind of stands there doing nothing when he could have gotten the gun or helped out. It's like the blocking just failed for the scene. The raptor starts breaking in, and they get inside the vent area and get on top of the skeletons, but because one of the raptors gets on it, starts breaking as they all fall down and are cornered by the two remaining raptors before the T-Rex comes in and kills them in a really cool scene, except one minor thing. How did nobody hear it? Yeah, it went through a tarp, and yeah, the raptors were loud, but there's like 5 seconds of silence before the T-Rex grabbed the jumping raptor, so it feels a little weird. I think what would have been better is if you heard the sounds but didn't know where it was coming from. Then as the raptor tries to jump, the T-Rex comes. Might garner less of a surprise reaction, but will still hold up well after the moment has ended, which seems to be a thing most movies, including Fallen Kingdom, which I'll talk about hopefully before the new one comes out. Does a bit too much. Scenes that are cool and hold up in the moment, or maybe even a few seconds after, but on rewatches, you question the logic. And if you want your movie to hold up anywhere close to this movie, you gotta have it make sense and hold up many times after the moment. So even after you try and find any problems, you generally can't, and it still ends up holding up really well. Usually takes some small changes, but yeah, the for me Ian and Hammond energy, the latter finishing up its character arc after Grant says,
I've decided not to endorse your park.
and he agrees.
So have I.
Nicely wrapping up his character and his arc. They get in a helicopter and the 6 fly away as Grant see birds, so finally now dinosaur. Well, to an extent they are, but you know what I mean. It's a great moment to end this great film on. And that was Jurassic Park. That's a great movie with some great characters, great scenes, great art, just pretty much great everything. There's only a few things that don't make sense, but generally does make sense. And it's just super duper entertaining, well made. A classic film that holds up well after you've first seen, or hell, even second, third, fourth time seen, or something like that. It's just a great movie. Recommend that you watch it. So yeah, I hope you enjoy it, and I'll see you whenever I upload a new video. Bye bye. Every single